Welcome back to the deep dive. If you're a successful business owner or, a high earner in South Africa, you've already mastered the art of building wealth.
That's the hard part, for sure.
It is, but the conversation that often gets, glossed over is how you truly preserve that wealth. For generations, everyone knows they need a will, but frankly, a will that just deals with what happens after a huge chunk of the wealth is already gone.
That's a great way to put it.
So today, we were deep diving into the ultimate strategic tool for that preservation piece, the trust.
That's right. And when a lot of people hear the word trust, they immediately think of a really complex legal paperwork that's only for the super, super rich.
Exactly.
But our deep dive into these sources, it really shows that a properly structured trust is actually the most accessible and strategic mechanism you can use right now to separate your personal ownership from all the potential business and financial risks.
And that's our mission today. We are unpacking sources that define these structures, expose the truly immense financial stakes, and you are going to see the staggering cost of just not acting. And we'll outline the common pitfalls, the things that can just destroy a trust's integrity.
Right.
We want to transform your view of estate planning from just, a bureaucratic exercise into actively building a robust asset protection fortress.
And we are going to use specific numbers to show just how that strategic structuring protects a family's legacy. It shields assets from, South Africa's high taxes, the excessive administration costs, and critically, those unforeseen personal liabilities.
Silent killers of wealth.
They really are.
Okay, let's unpack this. We'll use a very real scenario from our source material. Let's meet the Thimbu family. Johan, he's 48, and Tombi's 46, and they have 3 minor children.
And they're successful. They have a combined estate right now valued at R$25 million.
What's in that R$25 million?
It's a classic mix, really. The family home, some commercial properties, a solid investment portfolio, and some interest in their operating businesses. Very typical for a successful South African family. So let's start with scenario 1.
The status quo.
The status quo. They have no trust. Everything is just owned in their personal names.
Okay, so let's fast forward a few decades. Thanks to some good investments and property growth, by the time Johan passes away at 75, that R$25 million estate, it's now grown to R$68 million.
Fantastic growth, absolutely.
Yeah.
But this is where the consequences of personal ownership hit. And they hit hard and immediately. At Johan's passing, the estate is valued for duty purposes.
And this is where the lack of planning it bites. Let's pause there and look at the first cost. We're talking, what is it, R$12.9 million in estate duty alone.
Just for the duty, yes. Plus another R$2.38 million in executor's fees.
Wow.
And to unpack that number, in South Africa, the first R$3.5 million is exempt. After that, it's taxed at 20%. But here's the kicker. Once the estate value goes over R$30 million, the duty jumps to 25%.
So that R$68 million estate is immediately hit with that higher rate.
Immediately. Eating away a total of R$15.78 million just at the first death.
Just gone. And the implication of that massive hit right at the start, it fundamentally changes everything for the family's future. Ntombi inherits what's left, R$52.22 million, but then she passes away 7 years later.
And the assets get hit again. Because they're still held personally. It's another wave of costs. We see nearly R$10 million more in estate duty and another R$1.83 million in executor's fees.
So by the time this R$68 million estate finally gets to the Mthembu children, the total wealth lost across just those 2 events is R$27.75 million.
27.75 million rand.
Lost just to costs and taxes. That is staggering. It's nearly 41% of the family's total potential wealth. Just gone. The kids only get R$40.25 million.
That R$27 million loss is a devastating blow to a family legacy. And before we even get to the solution, just think about what that amount means for the children and grandchildren.
University, starting a business.
Exactly. Securing their own retirement. It's life-changing money that just vanished into thin air.
It's monumental. Okay, so now let's pivot. Let's look at scenario 2. The promise. The Mthembus, this time, they set up a properly structured trust early on. They transferred R$20 million of assets into it.
And they kept about R$5 million in their personal names, for day-to-day liquidity.
Right.
And here is where the structure does its job. It shields them. When Johan dies at 75, roughly R$54.4 million of those assets are sitting safely inside the trust.
And because the trust owns them, not Johan.
There is zero estate duty. Zero transfer costs at his death. The assets just pass seamlessly to the next generation of beneficiaries within that structure.
That structural separation, that is the aha moment. So the only costs are on the small personal estate that was left over.
Which comes to about our $3.82 million in total. A much, much more manageable number.
So when we add it all up, the total wealth lost across both deaths in this new scenario.
Yeah.
It drops to what?
It drops dramatically to our $4.12 million.
So, let me get this straight. Our $27.75 million lost without a trust versus our $4.12 million with a trust.
That's it.
The trust structure allowed our $24.61 million of additional wealth to reach the children and grandchildren. That's the preservation number.
It is, and it's an incredible number. It means they protected 94% of their growth compared to only 59% without the trust. But, and this is important, remember, this saving in tax and administration, it's only part of the story.
Okay, so what stands out to you beyond just the pure tax savings?
It's the protection against external risk. That calculation, it doesn't factor in a business lawsuit that could threaten their personal assets.
Which could have wiped out the entire estate.
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
It also doesn't factor in protection from, say, a beneficiary's messy divorce claim, which could save half of what they were meant to inherit. Trusts are legal shields against risk, not just clever tax tools.
So we know the stakes now. That R24 million difference it's huge. Let's define the fortress itself. For someone listening who's just starting this journey, what exactly is a trust?
Well, at its most basic, a trust is a legal arrangement where a person, who we call the founder, transfers assets to a group of people, the trustees.
Okay.
And those trustees then manage the assets for the ultimate benefit of the beneficiaries. But the crucial part is this. The trust itself becomes the legal owner of those assets.
And that separation of ownership from the individual, that's the key mechanism, isn't it? That's what builds the wall.
Precisely. The core strategy is separation. The trust owns the valuable, low-risk assets, the property, the investments. At the same time, the operating company, that carries the risk.
The day-to-day trading, the liabilities.
All the commercial exposure. This structure is how wealthy families maintain control without exposing their personal or family wealth to, operational failures.
And this gets to the common fear, which is, do I lose control?
You lose legal ownership, which you have to for the structure to be valid, but you don't necessarily lose involvement. The founder can, and often does, remain a trustee, and they set clear, binding rules in the trust deed itself.
But the separation has to be real.
It has to be genuine. If a court looks at it and sees the founder is still pulling all the strings, treating it like a personal bank account, the whole thing can be declared a sham. And that's why you need independent trustees.
Okay, so connecting this to the bigger picture, what are the main benefits for successful South Africans trying to secure a legacy?
It's really a holistic risk mitigation framework. First, you have asset protection, safeguarding wealth from creditors, from legal claims. Second is tax efficiency, minimizing that huge drag of estate duty.
And capital gains tax.
Right. Third is wealth preservation, so ensuring that generational security. And fourth, and this is the big one for business owners, is smooth business succession planning. It guarantees continuity if the owner suddenly exits the business for any reason.
Let's get into the essential complexity, the tax details. You said trusts save huge amounts in estate duty, but how does SARS treat the annual income and growth? Because I know that standard trust income tax rate is notoriously high.
It is. Income that's kept inside the trust is taxed at a flat rate of 45%.
Oh.
It looks punitive, and it's meant to be. It discourages trusts from just hoarding cash. However, this is where the strategic planning comes in. We use something called the conduit principle.
Can you break that down? The conduit principle?
Certainly. If the income is distributed to the beneficiaries in the same year it's earned, the trust just acts like a pipe, a conduit. The income flows through the trust, and it's taxed not at that 45% trust rate.
But at the individual beneficiary's personal tax rate.
Exactly. So if the beneficiaries have lower personal tax rates, say 30% or less, this suddenly turns a huge liability into an efficiency tool.
That is a critical piece of the puzzle. So the goal is often to keep the assets in the trust, but push the income out to the people who need it, letting them use their own lower tax thresholds.
That's the strategy. And regarding capital gains tax, trusts are subject to CGT at an effective rate of 36%, which is quite a bit higher than an individual's rate.
So you have to be careful.
You have to be very careful. It means decisions about when and how to sell trust assets need proper management. This is absolutely not a structure you can just set up and then forget about.
And that complexity, it really underscores why expertise is non-negotiable. That R24 million in preservation we talked about, it's instantly lost if the trust isn't managed correctly.
Mm-hmm.
I think the biggest regret is often, I wish Dad had set up that trust when he talked about it.
And the second biggest, often fatal regret is, I wish Dad hadn't managed the trust like it was his personal bank account. Because the court can simply look past the trust structure. We call it piercing the trust veil if certain critical mistakes are made.
And then all those assets you thought were protected are suddenly exposed.
Completely exposed.
Okay, let's go through them. The 5 common mistakes that allow courts to just tear down that fortress wall.
Mistake number 1, the letter of wishes trap. This happens when the founder writes these really detailed letters instructing the trustees exactly how to distribute every single asset.
Basically turning it into a secret will.
That's exactly what it is. And if this removes all genuine trustee discretion, the courts can just argue the trust is a sham. It lacks any real autonomy. The fix is to keep those wishes advisory, keep them general. You have to allow the trustees genuine scope to act.
That makes sense. The trustees have to have actual power. Otherwise, what's the point? Okay, what's the next vulnerability?
Mistake number 2, being the sole trustee. If you're the only trustee, it's so much easier for a creditor or for SARS to argue that the trust is just your alter ego.
It's just you with a different hat on.
Right. The fix is actually mandatory for family trusts in South Africa now. Always have at least 2 or 3 trustees, and at least one of them must be an independent trustee. That independent person adds the necessary objectivity and legal weight.
So that independent voice is crucial for it to be valid. What about the day-to-day management?
This leads to mistake number 3, treating trust assets as personal assets. This is probably the most common and the most fatal flaw.
What does that look like in practice?
It means mixing trust and personal funds, or using trust assets for personal benefit without proper trustee resolutions. A classic example. The trust owns the holiday home, and the family just uses it for free whenever they want.
Instead of paying a market-related rent to the trust.
Exactly. That's a serious breach of separation. The fix is simple but strict. Document everything. All decisions must go through formal, signed trustee resolutions. Every transaction has to be at arm's length.
Prevention over cure.
Yeah.
Documentation, documentation, documentation. Okay, number 4.
Number 4 is fraudulent transfers. This is trying to transfer assets into a trust after a liability has already come up, or, specifically to defraud existing creditors.
You can't hide the money after you're already in trouble.
It's illegal. The courts will reverse it immediately. The fix is all about timing. You establish the trust and you transfer the assets before any problems arise. The best time to build the fortress is when the skies are clear.
When you don't need it yet. And the final mistake.
Mistake number 5, poor trustee selection. Just choosing trustees who don't have any financial sense, or they don't understand their legal duties, or they have massive conflicts of interest, this just leads to family fights, paralysis, or noncompliance. The fix is to select a smart mix of trusted family members and professional advisors who are actually competent.
So, avoiding those 5 mistakes, managing the conduit principle, and actually achieving that R24 million preservation, it requires some serious specialized knowledge. It's becoming very clear why a trust consultant is so crucial.
This is where that expert guidance really provides clarity and, I think, confidence. The value of a good consultant is pretty straightforward. They give you expert guidance tailored to your specific goals, they simplify all the complicated legal and financial jargon, and they provide a holistic approach from the initial setup right through to ongoing SARS compliance.
So a consultant helps you move beyond the idea to the actual implementation. You're not just buying a document, you're getting a strategy. What tangible services should you look for?
The deliverables have to address both risk and compliance. So that means creating a custom trust plus company structure to get that separation of risk we talked about. It means doing a personal exposure analysis to see which assets actually need protection.
And a plan to get them in there.
A practical, SARS-compliant asset transfer strategy. And, crucially, annual compliance.
Our sources call that ongoing annual maintenance the fortress review. I love that concept. It's like a checkup to make sure the walls are still strong.
It's a vital investment. It gives you peace of mind. It makes sure all the annual resolutions are documented. It maintains SARS compliance. And it ensures that separation between personal and trust assets is actively enforced. It stops those 5 critical mistakes from ever happening. It secures the legacy.
Ultimately, it seems this is all about transforming the stress of, potentially high administration costs and unforeseen risks into a system of peace of mind. It turns a successful person into a confident guardian of their family's wealth.
Let's summarize the core insight here. When we looked at the Mthembu family, the difference between having a well-structured, compliant trust and having none, it was a colossal R24.61 million in preserved wealth.
Money that went directly to the family's future.
Not to the taxman or the administrators. That single number just shows the power of being proactive.
So what does this all mean for you listening? If you are generating income, building assets, and you're successfully navigating the South African economy, this raises a pretty important question. Are you actively building a framework to protect your generational wealth? Or are you just passively preparing for high administration costs and some unforeseen liability?
And the time to build your fortress is now, while things are good.
Yeah.
When you absolutely don't need it yet. Waiting until a business partner defaults, or a major lawsuit is on the horizon, or divorce papers are served.
That's waiting until it's legally too late to act.
It is.
For those who recognize that they need some expert guidance on analyzing their personal exposure, on structuring their own asset protection fortress, or just ensuring ongoing compliance to avoid those 5 critical mistakes, we recommend seeking out a qualified trust consultant. Someone like Lumka Sturman.
Absolutely.
You can visit www.lumkasturman.com, that's LUMKASTUURMAN.com, to explore structure review and consultation options and really make sure your legacy is secure.
That's the deep dive for today. Go protect your wealth.